welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very happy to have you be with us for this fantastic discussion. We have a good turnout today, so we're just going to get right to it. Hi, my name is Jennifer Apicella, and I am the Director of Partnerships and Programs at the Pittsburgh Robotics Network, and welcome you to today's virtual event discussion. So the Pittsburgh Robotics Network represents one of the world's largest and most influential robotics communities. Many of you are probably already familiar with Carnegie Mellon University's stellar leadership in computer science, robotics, research and development, and artificial intelligence. But what is equally as impressive is the depth and breadth of Pittsburgh's commercial robotics business community. The Pittsburgh Robotics Network has over 100 robotics organizations that are operating within our region and represent nearly covering 12 or more different industry segments. So this is impressive. Globally speaking, very unique as well. So this is why Pittsburgh is referred to as the robotics capital of the world. So, and we're very proud to have you join us today. So it is our mission to connect you, our audience, with this rapidly growing industry community. And as we work together to accelerate the overall adoption of autonomous systems. So welcome. If you'd like to learn more about us, our community, or anything else, just to stay in the know about robotics industry news, events, and other announcements related to this industry, I really urge you to check out our website. It's robopgh.org. There's a link in the chat to go right there. Another way you can stay connected with everything that we are doing and working on is to follow us on social media. You can check us out on Twitter or LinkedIn or both. We share a lot of news and announcements and updates on all things robotics. So if you check your chat, there are links to these accounts directly, or you can just go ahead and use that handy QR code that you see on your screen and just scan it with your phone, and that'll take you right to our LinkedIn page. We've made it really easy for you. So no need to wait. Just go ahead and take a quick minute and give us a follow, and you'll be able to stay super connected. So let's get to today's event, which is what you've all joined us for today. Just so you know, this is our Robotics Talent Spotlight, which is an exciting virtual event series that is designed to help you and others learn more about these companies who are leading the way in robotics and automated systems. So this is so you can hear firsthand from the people who are doing this exciting work, and to understand more about who they are, where they work, what they do, and what types of technologies they are building. So today we're going to be talking to two individuals from Carnegie Robotics. They're here to share their backgrounds, their work, their experiences, their perspectives, and they're going to give you, I think, a really clear idea of both what Carnegie Robotics is doing as a company, as well as the work that they perform and how that serves the broader industry. This is a really fast-paced industry, so these types of discussions are so important because they help us all to stay engaged and connected and informed so that we can become better aware of opportunities and be able to navigate ourselves within all the variety of opportunities out there. So before we jump into that discussion, though, I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to recognize and thank some of our leading sponsors. So the organizations that you see here in front of you, these are the Pittsburgh robotics community, and they're leaders in their respective fields. So we've got academic and research powerhouses like Carnegie Mellon University and the University of Pittsburgh, who are both strong in producing top talent for this space. We've also got Denton's Global Venture Technology Group, JP Morgan, Cowen, Harris Williams, and Cascadia Capital, who are all global business growth leaders and valuable partners to our companies throughout the robotics community. And of course, our leaders in autonomous development, notably in autonomous vehicle development, Argo AI and Aurora. So if you check the chat, there are links to all of these great organizations. I really urge you to check them out if you're not familiar with them and learn more, because they really are fantastic. Speaking of fantastic organizations, today's event, we are featuring Carnegie Robotics. So Carnegie Robotics is headquartered in Pittsburgh and is a leader in the robotics industry, delivering solutions for some of the largest and most impactful projects in the field for over a decade. Their expertise, integrity, and superior product development and testing is why they are the performance model and standard for rugged robotics across many industries, including agriculture, mining, defense, mobility, infrastructure, energy, the list goes on. So if you are interested in learning more about Carnegie Robotics, also, if you're interested in a job opportunity, they are currently hiring. So check the chat. You'll find some links that will take you to their career pages, their career page, also to view some of their currently available openings. And who knows, maybe you'll find your next career path with Carnegie Robotics. So I'll be moderating this discussion today with two amazing individuals from Carnegie Robotics. One is on the technical side, and then we have another one more on the business or operational side. So you're going to get to see two different perspectives of the same company. So with us today, we have Chani Martin, who is a mechanical engineer. Originally from Los Angeles, California, she obtained her Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Franklin W. Olin College of Engineering. She had interned at Boston Dynamics and Levant and SpaceX and Carnegie Robotics. But ultimately, she enjoyed her time at Carnegie Robotics so much that she decided to move to Pittsburgh and take a full-time role there. So we're so excited to have her here today and have her in Pittsburgh as part of our ecosystem community. Now, when she's not working hard at Carnegie Robotics, in her free time, she does enjoy her dog, Riley. And she also likes visiting we have so many local parks and wildlife and nature trails. So she enjoys hiking as well. Also with us, we have Steve Wedner. Steve is a supply chain manager at Carnegie Robotics. Now, Steve studied industrial engineering at Penn State University and had a focus on engineering design and manufacturing. He began his career as a product development engineer, working more with 3D CAD and metal fabrication and performing engineering design for high quality architectural applications. And so he wanted to get more business operations experience, which led him to work in the steel industry for about 11 years, where he got to focus on supply chain and quality and inside sales and application engineering. And then, well, he noticed that there was quite a number of robotics companies in Pittsburgh. And so with that type of access, right, to all those opportunities, he wanted to continue to expand his experience, but in robotics. And so he recently joined Carnegie Robotics. But now in his free time, he enjoys being a husband, a father to two girls, and he also loves to get out and explore the local food and restaurant scene, which Pittsburgh has got some pretty good stuff available for that as well. So thank you both for joining us today. I know I have given an overview for everyone who's joined us about Carnegie Robotics, but I'd like to hear it from your perspective or from your words. So if each of you could do us a favor, for someone who's never heard of Carnegie Robotics and has no idea what they do or who they do it for, could you maybe help us understand, what industry the solutions that you make serve, right? What are some key market solutions, problems that are solved, who you do it for, and why does it matter? Give us an overview of your company. Chani, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So pretty much, I'm going to keep referring to Carnegie Robotics as CRL, but CRL spun out of CMU and NRIC, if you didn't know that. We focus on stereo cameras, but we also develop full-scale autonomous platforms, and also just like other components that end up supporting that autonomy. I would definitely say like our main focus is the stereo cameras and the sensors. We design them, we manufacture them, we install them, and that enables robots to be able to see where they are in the world and where they're going and how to interact with it.
Excellent. Well, thanks for that. Steve, what would you like to add to that? What would you like to share about that you think would help us understand a little bit more about what Carnegie Robotics is all about?
Yeah, sure. So Carnegie Robotics is really an expert in the stereo camera in terms of the products we provide. We also do projects for the military, for material handling, for construction, where we do more than just a stereo camera solution. We do full autonomy solutions, including hardware and software for various types of heavy machinery companies, Fortune 100 companies, large OEMs that are looking to achieve autonomy. They have a goal to achieve autonomy. And of course, we try and leverage our expertise in stereo to be able to do that. So it's never a dull moment. We're a fully employee-owned company. We've been around since 2010. And we take on challenging problems. You know, we look to solve hard engineering problems, and that's what gets us excited. And of course, like I said, we leverage everything we can with what we are experts at in the field.
Now, for those who are joined who are unfamiliar with the term, we're going to use this term a lot, field robotics, right? Maybe Chani, you could help us understand when we use the word field robotics or rugged robotics, how that's different from other types of robotics.
Yeah, pretty much we're working on robots that replace jobs that humans currently do, and either help them, assist them, or make it easier for them to do that job remotely, essentially. A lot of those jobs are difficult or dangerous or dirty or any of those categories. And so those are perfect places for robots to be used and not people.
So field is almost literally in fields, right?
Exactly.
In the field. So
Yeah.
in the environments that are unstructured and uncontrolled and oftentimes quite just really not optimal for human survival, or I shouldn't say survival, for human endeavors, if you will, in the workplace. And so they'd be better suited for these highly intelligent automated machines.
Yep.
Right. And that's across many different industries, correct? So it's not like you just do military applications. You do a lot of different things for, you said agriculture, and what are some of the other industry examples?
Yeah, military, construction, cleaning, marine, locomotive. There's just endless options here. Yeah.
Excellent. So we bring up the concept, we touched on this just now in this question even, right? So the human element, right? So obviously humans, you know, are the ones doing this work every day in terms of creating these technologies and working, right? And building all this stuff. But, you know, machines, intelligent automated machines and robots really help humans do their work. And they sometimes get a bad rap, right? Where people are feeling like that they're sort of like, well, humans, we don't really need that. But at the end of the day, these types of technologies help humans more than they would take away from humans. So can either of you give me an example of how Carnegie Robotics and the work you do really helps humans? I know when we talked previously, you had mentioned some points about safety and efficiency and stuff. But yeah, if either of you could just sort of fill us in on an example of how this really is helpful to humans.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, our stereo systems, the hardware is designed, really designed for ruggedness. And by ruggedness, I mean all types of weather conditions and temperature conditions. So, you know, for example, we have one application of cameras used in mining, dirty, dusty, dark. It allows an operator or operators to see things that would be dangerous for a human to physically go see, to inspect or to investigate. You know, it's a similar application for a lot of our stereo cameras go into cold weather, very, very cold weather. You know, they're designed to survive even more than probably what it is, but it wouldn't be safe for a human to be outside in freezing, sub-freezing weather for very long. So it gives vision to operators so that they can make safe and intelligent decisions on whatever they're doing at the moment. One more application is we develop camera payload systems that are used on other robots or other machines that will do like a physical inspection of a power plant where electrical wires are out, and they would, for example, they would need for a human to go inspect that and look and check meters or check temperatures. They would need to shut it down, or it's just generally dangerous in nature. The camera systems allow the human to be in a control station or somewhere safe while the robot and the camera system does the work to check meters, check temperatures, check for cracks or something like that. So it's really a lot of it's really for efficiency and safety, and sort of those, if you're safe, you're efficient. And that's one of the big things one of the big problems, one of the big initiatives of all these large companies, which we solve that problem for them using the autonomy that we develop.
That's great. Really helpful. Chani, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I guess another like big program that CRL has worked on is called SHRED. It was a project we had for the US Army to search for mines. Previously, soldiers were doing this with what essentially looked like a metal detector. And we developed a ground robot to replace them. So they're out of harm's way and they can be remotely, interacting with the field and searching for these mines and neutralizing them. So
that's great. Yeah, I think those are all really, really helpful examples, right, of really putting humans in a better position to do their work,
right.
Rather than in one that might be unsafe. So yeah, that's great. So let's shift gears a little bit here. So we've heard a little bit about Carnegie Robotics, about the type of robotics and some examples of how it helps humans. But let's hear a little bit about you all as humans. Let's learn a little about. So I'm going to start with you, Chani, if you don't mind. So if you could tell us what kind of work do you do? So we see that your title is a mechanical engineer, and that can mean a lot of different things depending on the company you work for, the customers you help, the technology you're working on. So if you could share with us all what kind of work you do specifically as part of your organization, that sort of day-to-day perspective. What does a day in the life of, you as a mechanical engineer at Carnegie Robotics look like? And give us some examples.
Okay. Yeah. I would say mechanical engineering is a pretty broad umbrella. I can be doing anything from design work to analysis to actually assembling parts. I would say most of my day-to-day work is working on CAD. I'm usually designing parts or cameras or assemblies, and specifically at a robotics company, that means I get to directly interact with the electrical engineers and software engineers when I'm designing these products. I have to worry about integrating a PCB. I have to worry about cables. I have to worry about dissipating heat and whether or not these components are going to be rugged enough for the environments that they're going to be exposed to. CRL has a lot of R&D and production products. So sometimes the first time around when I'm making a prototype, I'm the one who gets to assemble it and test it. So I get a lot of hands-on experience at the same time, not just CAD work. I also have gotten opportunities to do the analysis work and then see that part actually get tested on a vibe table or in a thermal chamber. So I get to do all kinds of things and, just learn about all of these different fields that the robot, that the applications are going to be used in. So, yeah.
That's great. I think that's a helpful perspective. What about you, Steve? So your title is supply chain manager, which again, I think can mean a lot of different things depending on where you're working and who you're helping. But yeah, why don't you give us a walkthrough on what the day-to-day looks like, what kind of tasks you do, what the goals or the objectives of your role is, and what that's like.
Sure. Yeah, so while Chani is out there designing parts, which is what our engineers do best, designing machine parts to be machined, PCBAs that we need to get fabricated. It's my philosophy and my goal to take as much pressure off of them when it comes to the commercial aspects of getting those parts made. So, part of my day is spent sending out our designs to various suppliers, getting quotes back, evaluating those quotes, determining the best combination of price, lead time, and quality. And it depends on the product, it depends on the supplier, it depends on the day. We also, we have a lot of open purchase orders at any given time. It's our job to ensure those purchase orders with all of our suppliers are going to be delivered on time. And if not, what can we do to remedy why they're not being delivered on time? We have two sort of sources of requirements. One is from our engineering project side, and that's usually very fast paced, and we need everything right away because things change right away. So we've done a good job managing that, knowing where we can spend a little more money to get it faster. And then we have our system, what I call our system generated requirements, and that's more streamlined production and more that's more of on hopefully on a tight schedule. So it's two different types of management. One of the big things we do every day is manage part shortages in our electronics sourcing, and we have a great team that does that. We almost act, where we have someone dedicated on the supply chain team to do that, and it sounds easier than it really is. So that's a big time sink now, but it really does help us get what we need and when we need it at a good price. So yeah, it's never a dull moment, and like I said, we're here to support the engineers. We're here to support production. We're sort of in the middle of all that. Make sure parts come in. Make sure the parts that come in are good quality and a good price, so that we can remain sustainable in both sectors of the business.
Yeah, and I can imagine that'd be very challenging, in today's sort of moment in time, just simply because I think we're all, even as consumers or just as regular humans with supply chain shortages, right? We're all affected in that regard.
Yeah.
But businesses, it's mission critical for businesses to get the pieces and parts they need to supply orders and to serve their customers and to build what they need to build. So how do you deal with that? Those struggles, things that are outside of your control, outside the realm of control? I imagine there's sort of a lot of risk management involved in the role.
Yeah, there is. We got to get creative at times. We're doing a much better job of planning, trying to forecast, get orders out for critical items sooner than we need them. We really want to partner with suppliers that can keep up with our ever-changing needs and requirements, and that's been good. We do have a few good suppliers that can do that for us. We want to develop more partnerships like that, so that when we need to change priorities, they can do it with no problem. And we need something shipped overnight that day. They understand why we need that. So it's sort of, we got to build relationships where we got to spend the effort to build relationships where we can to help, just get priority. We're a small company. We do high mix, low volume, and that's challenge. It's exciting. It's exciting because we get to experience and do a lot of different things, but it's challenging when you need to try and leverage volume, and we got to get creative and work with suppliers that are able to get creative with us. So yeah, every day it's a new challenge, and we're happy to take that on.
Great. Thank you both for sharing that.
Yeah.
So we get to hear now a little bit about what you do today, present day, right? And how exciting that can be, or what that all entails. But I think a lot of people are curious, and one of the goals of this particular event discussion is to sort of rewind a little bit. So we see where you're at today, but you didn't start at Carnegie Robotics. That's not where you started your journey, or even early on, right, when you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do with your lives, what career paths you wanted to take. A lot of people may think, and this is a sort of a stereotype or a misnomer, right, or something that's not quite accurate, is that in order to go into robotics, you have to have a PhD, you have to be an engineer, that there's, but there really are so many different pathways and so many different opportunities. And so what I'd love to do is hear your story about how you got here. So if each of you could share maybe that early spark that sort of pushed you in this direction, and then from that direction into your pathway, right, what you've done along the way, and how you ended up here in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Robotics. Yeah, so Chani, do you want to go first and sort of share your story?
Yeah, sure. As a kid, I was always into math and science, and I was lucky enough to go to this high school. It's called California Academy of Math and Science. They were a magnet school, and they had some pretty cool early pathway programs where you could learn about biomedical engineering or just strictly engineering alone. They also had a robotics club, So I, just gave it a try, and I had a lot of fun, like building and learning and working with this fun group of people throughout the years on different robotics challenges. At that high school, I also got the opportunity to take some like external courses in machining. So I started learning how to use the mill, the lathe, eventually welding. And I took that with me into college. So where I went to college, Olin College is about half an hour away from Boston. It's a very tiny engineering school. It's about 300 students. We only do engineering. And part of the reason why I went there was it had a 50-50 gender ratio. And they had a big focus on collaborative work and design and like hands-on experience. So getting to go to Olin meant I got to do a lot of hands-on projects. I got to keep being involved with the machine shop. I was like a teacher assistant for them. And I helped a lot, again, with like mill, lathe, welding, just various projects like that. And during my time at Olin, I also got involved at a makerspace over in Boston. And they had this Kickstarter project called Stompy, which is a giant hexapod robot that can actually straddle a car. And so I volunteered as one of the welders on that team, and just got to like be more exposed to robotics, to people that are interested in it. Just like in general, got more excited about that field. I got awesome opportunities to do internships. So I was at Boston Dynamics. I was at a small startup called Levant. I went to SpaceX, both in the rocket division and satellite division. And I did an internship at Carnegie Robotics, of course. And ultimately, once I graduated, I just like really enjoyed my experience at Carnegie Robotics. I think a couple of things that like really drew me back were the variety of projects that we have at CRL. So I can't really think of very many companies where, I'd get to work in so many different fields in such a short amount of time. And each time I get to work in one of these, let's say it's agriculture and military, I get to learn so much about that specific field, focus on it, and work and design in that environment. And then, half a year later, I might be on something completely different. So it's always something exciting. It's small enough company that I feel like I know most everyone. I've interacted with a lot of the people at the company, whether it's, other engineers, production, the supply chain, like anyone that's working there, I'm like interacting with regularly. I'm not really, just stuck in like a tiny subsect of mechanical engineering or something. I'm interacting with the electrical engineers and the software engineers and everyone else. So I think that's like pretty unique. And is just like, yeah, it kept me engaged and interested throughout the years. So.
That's great. And so, so you lived all over the place, and yeah. And then ultimately though decided that Pittsburgh was a good home for you. So yeah. So congratulations on that. It is pretty great place. I'm a little biased, but
Right.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. I think hopefully that resonates with some people here in the audience who are maybe at different stages, right? Similar in their journeys. And so that can be encouraging. So Steve, in the same vein, right? If you could tell us about your background, when you got that spark, right, to go into whatever it was you went into that led you down the path that led you here. Yeah, share that story with us, please.
Yeah, sure. So similar to Chani, I was always better. I would say I was better at math and science than the other subjects. So I naturally gravitated towards something in technology. I like to be hands-on. I would build things where I could. So I wanted to go into engineering. I knew I wanted to study engineering. I ended up choosing the industrial engineering path at Penn State because for me it was a little broader. It was still engineering, but a little broader. It had options for operations, different types of analytical type engineering as opposed to analysis. And I ended up gravitating towards manufacturing, engineering, design anyways. So when I graduated, I did basically design engineering for 3 years at an architectural products company. And some of those products, very high quality, made mostly all of them here in the United States in Pittsburgh. A lot of them are around the city today. I'm still very proud of them. So that was when I used to be an engineer. I then wanted to get more business and operations experience, as you said, Jennifer. So I ended up going to a company that supplied wear parts and tooling to the steel industry. I was there for 11 years. That was a very great experience for me. I got to do, it was a small company like CRL. And when you're in a small company like that, there's lots of opportunities to do different things. And that holds true for Carnegie Robotics for sure. So I got to experience a lot of things, one of which was, two of which were estimating and supply chain. And that clicked with me, from a commercial point of view, where I was at a company where we did very technical things, but I got to do more operational, business-oriented activities that, affected the lifeline of that company. I was pricing things to make sure that we were making profits. I was negotiating with suppliers to make sure our costs were as low as possible. At some point, I wanted to broaden my experience. So as I was investigating Pittsburgh, obviously I was born and raised here. I have a very strong foundation here. I wasn't going to move anywhere. I came across how impressive the robotics system, like you said, Jennifer, the ecosystem is in Pittsburgh. It's enormous. It's amazing. It's impressive. So I basically said, for lack of a better word, I gotta be a part of this. So it took some time. I didn't rush anything. I ended up looking at different companies, what jobs were available, and CRL had a supply chain manager position open, and I said, this looks great. Ended up developing into in the interview process, and every interview I had went better than the last. I felt very good that I could contribute. I knew I had a lot to learn, but I felt very, very strongly that I could contribute at least something right away as well. So yeah, I've been there almost a year. Been here almost a year. It's been a very challenging and rewarding experience. I've learned a ton. A lot of smart people at this company. A lot of smart people, and so far so good.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for walking us through that. That's really helpful. So you both said a lot of really interesting things, I think, about different parts of your journey, different reasons or passions or interest levels behind different choices that you've made. So, but ultimately you chose Carnegie Robotics. And so something I know, we talked about the ecosystem, something that comes to mind that I'm always curious about. In Pittsburgh, we have over 100 robotics companies that operate here across a whole bunch of different industry areas and solutions. So my question to you is, why Carnegie Robotics versus other kinds of robotics? We have companies here that focus on material handling, warehousing and logistics, agricultural technologies, healthcare robotics, right, surgical robotics, and the list goes on and on. There are so many different industry areas. So yeah, I'm always curious why people choose a company like yours, which is focused on that rugged outdoor or environmental field robotics. So yeah, so why Carnegie Robotics versus those other industry ones, and yeah, why would you consider the work you're doing, say, more exciting or interesting than the other options? I'll let you pick whoever wants to go first.
I mean, I think you're asking like why we've chosen CRL.
Yeah, yeah. Why each of you personally made that choice? Because again, you had a lot of options with all the different internships you've had in all these other companies. Yeah.
I think I'll just go back again to like the variety of projects that we get. I think it's just awesome that we get to interact with so many fields. I think also just we have so many projects with such a small company, so each of us has like a huge role, and we're given a lot of, I think, independence with our with like the choices we make and the amount of creativity we put into a given project. So I think there's a lot of trust in the employees here to if you think you have an idea for how to solve something or a better system for how we go about things, like it's openly encouraged, or it's not overly rigid or anything. I think there's just, yeah, a lot of like independence given to us, which is very unique.
Yeah, and I know we had chatted prior in preparation for this discussion, and so you had mentioned some of those things, Chani, and I know Steve, you brought up a slightly different perspective or appeal for your decision for why Carnegie Robotics. You were really moved by the leadership vision, and then also some of the products and some things that directly related to your job. Can you describe some of what that appeal was for you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, for me, well, one thing that stood out to me was that, you know, Carnegie Robotics, we make a product. We have product, and what I've learned is we use that product in all of our, not in all of it, but we leverage as much of that product as we can. So I felt because of that, like I said, I'm able to add value right away. I've always dealt with product, you know, hardware, things that you can tangibly buy, sell, things like that. So I thought that was going to be a good fit for me, and I think it was. And like I said, it's a relatively flat organization, which allows for a lot of collaboration. Any given day, I'm talking to every single department. Like Chani said, you know, we have you know, half the day could be spent working on problems to get production solved, and then the other half could be getting parts in an emergency for an engineering project because you know, whatever is needed. So it's very fast paced, but it's a real true team effort. You know, everybody wants to solve the problem. There's very little egos, you know, so we all work together to make sure that we do what's best for the business at the end of the day. So
That's great.
Yeah.
So, and then I just have a couple more questions, and then we're going to turn things over to some of the audience questions. But before we do that, I think you've given us a really nice perspective, an overview of the organization, what kind of customers you have, what kind of work you do, what led you here to you know, to your current position, when, you know, what inspired you along the way. Now, just these are some practical questions. When it comes to the day-to-day, which matters a lot when people figure out where they want to work and what they want that to be like. A lot of that sort of comes back to company culture, and also some of the policies, right, that an organization will have in place for their employees. And so COVID and sort of the rise of the pandemic brought along the concept of flexible workspaces, and that transformed a lot of companies' culture and a lot of employees' choices for where they would like to be. So if you could each sort of talk about what it's like to work at Carnegie Robotics from that perspective, right? So some organizations are going back to the office and saying office work is required, and they love it or hate it, but it is what it is. And then others are being more flexible and trying to be remote or offering hybrid, you know, options. Some companies are very large, right? So it has an enterprise-wide culture, whereas some are small, so it's more like a startup culture. You know, things like that. So if you could each just take a moment and let us know, give us an example of working conditions like remote, hybrid, you know, in the office, as well as, you know, are your teams distributed? Are they all in the office? Are most people remote? And how does that play out in your day-to-day?
Yeah, sure. I think ever since, of course, everything that happened with COVID, we had a huge shift to moving a lot of things over to working remotely. I would say like a lot of our meetings, or all of our meetings, always have a Zoom link option. There's a lot of flexibility at CRL to be able to work from home. I would say quite a few people do, but it's also important to be able to like come into the office a lot of times, since we are a hardware engineering company. So, you know, we have to physically assemble things and test things. So definitely being in the office for that is important. But there's a lot of flexibility with, like, if you have meetings or software or CAD work they're just doing on your computer, you can definitely take that home. I would say most of our company is local to Pittsburgh. We definitely have a few positions that are not in Pittsburgh that are fully remote. And that's like totally fine. And it just works easily with how our like meetings and everything are structured.
That's great.
Mhm.
Steve, anything to add? Anything different or?
No, it's very flexible. Like Chani said, there's definitely times you need to be face to face, especially with how collaborative we are. I know for me, there's value in my team to be in the office. But if we need to be remote, we can do our jobs remote as well. So it's very flexible, hybrid. COVID definitely changed some things, as you said. We have policies in place to keep the employees safe, keep them working safely. And if that requires to be home, that's perfectly acceptable. And we're very flexible, and there's no pressure. So, yeah.
That's good to hear. I always like to hear this practical approach to people.
Yes. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so before we really turn things over to some of the audience questions, which for those of you who are here live in the session, if you have any questions, go ahead and use the Q&A button in your window, and you can go ahead and submit those. We'll be asking the panelists some of those questions here in just a minute. But before we do that, what I'd really love to hear, I love hearing stories about projects that people are working on at these companies. I feel very grateful. I get to talk to a lot of different people who work at a lot of different companies who do a lot of cool stuff, you two included. So what I would love to hear is if each of you could just take a minute and tell us about a specific robotics project or a specific project, right, that you are working on or have, worked on, and just walk us through, a whole A to Z about the story of that project, why you chose to tell it, like what makes it so unique or interesting for others to hear, and just sort of like let us peek into your lives, for what that project's all about and why it was exciting to you.
Yeah, I can go first. So yeah, the project that I'm working on right now and have been working on for like probably a year or so now is a marine autonomy program, which we're working with a company called Brunswick. We're partnered with them, and we're working on like outfitting their systems with our cameras and autonomy software. Before this, I haven't had any experience with boats or marine technology or anything. So it's been a fun year of just like learning a lot and learning about a whole new system. I think a lot of the projects I've worked on before have been probably like a bit smaller in terms of scale of vehicles and robotics. So this is a very new and different challenge. I've gotten to go on a few site visits. We like are outfitting a boat, we're testing, we're out in the water. It's a lot of like just fun, hands-on, like practical visits. I'm getting to, like I said, learn a lot about just like the world of marine technology and autonomy and some of those like challenges that we're facing that we haven't had to before, such as all this exposure to salt water. Like that's a huge issue. This is like just doubling down on how rugged our cameras and systems really are, pushing them to the limits there. And at the same time, I'm getting to interact with the design team, and these are products that are going to go out and be sold to somebody, and they need to look nice and professional and be reliable and not, like encourage people to trust them and like them. So I'm going to do testing, I'm going to do design. It's just, I'm learning a whole new field. It's just been like a lot of fun, and I'm going to be continuing to work on this for a while. So yeah, it's just like a fun project that I get to be on right now.
That's great. It sounds really like an immersive and interesting experience. So yeah, nice. What about you, Steve, in the world of supply chain? Maybe walk us through a project that was especially interesting, engaging, difficult, or whatever you choose to share.
Sure. About a couple months ago, I started a project to really investigate and analyze why and how we were spending so much on freight. And freight is usually the forgotten about thing. You buy a product, and you ship it in, there's always some sort of cost to bringing it into your facility. So what I did is, we use a finite amount of freight companies for the majority of what we ship. which is a lot of things. We source the majority of our components. So, you know, whenever we're prototyping or doing something really early in the stages of a project, we typically have the capacity to do it in our facility. But when we're ready to move to some sort of volume, we need to outsource it. So that all comes with product costs plus freight costs. So what I did is I was able to gather all the aggregate freight data in Excel format. I compiled it, I formatted it, and you know, I did an analysis on the spend and was able to identify multiple sources of excess cost, and was able to implement certain actions pretty quickly to reduce that. You know, was you know, moving supply from overseas to domestic, given the Section 232 tariffs from China, consolidating the types of services we use, consolidating the number of freight companies we use, consolidating lots of different things, consolidating number of orders per one source per day to eliminate multiple shipments per day. So that's going to be an ongoing thing. It allowed me to learn a lot about what we've done and what we should do. There's still work to be done. Obviously, I've created reports that help us track this now, so it's more of an active thing. Of course, no project's ever really complete, right, Chani? So we need to keep on it and make sure that we're following the procedures to allow us to optimize, you know, and not spend more than we need to. I could go on and on, but I think that's probably a pretty good summary.
Well, no,
But, that's the thing. That's the thing at CRL. You know, we have lots of exciting engineering. You know, in manufacturing, for example, there's tons of lean initiatives that we do to optimize productivity. You know, I speak with our director of manufacturing all the time about, you save 2 seconds here over X number of jobs, it's a lot of time. So, you know, we have things like this, continuous improvement, in addition to all of the fun engineering stuff too. And it really is a good group effort that we have here. So lots of different things to do. There's no shortage of work either. So.
Right. No, I think it's good. I like how there's two different sides of it, right? Chani, you're out in the field, going deep in industry, the uses, the applications, right? The needs, the gaps, the challenges. And then, Steve, you're sort of on the inside where you're making sure things are running smoothly and everything is efficient, and, you're passionate about process. And every business needs those perspectives and those skill sets, right? And there's room for sort of everyone, I think, in these companies. So thank you both for sharing that. So, okay, I'm going to shift gears here. And for those of you who submitted questions, you can still submit questions. So if there's anything you want to ask the panelists, I've got a nice queue of questions here. So I'm going to pick a few out, and we'll see how many we can get through. But feel free to use the Q&A button in your window, your Zoom window, if you'd like to submit a question. So this question is from Patty, and this is for Chani. And she was curious, how many female engineers are at Carnegie Robotics?
Yeah, I think we have about like 11 key female roles that are ranging from like chief of staff, head of tech recruiting, production management. We have quite a few production techs that are females. So I think that's about how many we have.
That's good. I think that's always something in this particular space, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's good to see females sort of feeling that this is accessible to them, and this is a space that they can be successful in and contribute and be challenged in their careers, but also that they can be comfortable in the workplace. So that's helpful to know. Thank you. Okay, so Amy has a question here, and I'm bringing this up because I think it's important. So you talked a lot about the Carnegie Robotics does the rough, rugged, field work for robotics, and it's a lot of different industry applications. You also spoke, though, about the fact that you have these cameras, right, and that you have these products, these hardware products. So she's asking, how do you help, or do you help customers integrate software in addition to offering hardware. So more of that full stack side of the business. If one of you could maybe tackle that and just sort of explain a little bit more about what you do from an integration, software, and full stack perspective.
Yeah, definitely providing the software integration is a huge part of what CRL does. A lot of like we are providing the cameras and sometimes other sensors that might include like GPS or INS systems. We're kind of, sometimes we're prescribing, you know, what those products should be to integrate. And then once that part's done, then we have a whole bunch of software work to do to work with whatever system they already have, to help them out with the software that we have on our systems, and to like just bring them a full integrated system. So we definitely have a huge software team, and that's a lot of the work that they do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
So this question is from Kaylin, and it's for Steve. The question is, how important or valuable is your technical background in your current role? Because you have an engineering degree, right? Is that
I do,
is that right?
yes.
So how, do you apply that to your current supply chain role? Is it helpful or what?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I got very familiar with reading engineering prints, understanding mechanical tolerances. So that was a seamless transition for me. I've looked at prints pretty much every day of my career for the past however long I've had my career. So it's definitely valuable. I understand manufacturing. But what was a big learning experience for me? So my background is mainly mechanical as opposed to electrical, and the electrical is a whole new world that I had to learn. But even having a mechanical background allows for the understanding, and you know, engineering typically makes you think analytically, and that's just helpful as well in an environment, any technical environment, to be able to think analytically, understand how things are used and, you know, applied. It's very, very helpful. And I think that's why, that's definitely why, even though I'm in a more business operational type of role, it's in a technical environment. And that's really where I wanted to be. So it's helped a lot. Yes, for sure.
Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Kaylin also had another good question here, and it's more about the work that you all do and the type of work. You mentioned you work on a lot of different projects, but what percentage of projects are what would be sort of like a one-off project or a side project versus an ongoing demand for Carnegie Robotics, right, as a business? So if you could speak to that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think, I mean, our focus is to be in the ongoing demand field or category. Part of us spinning out of NREC was NREC is a lot more focused on, I'd say, like research and like one-off projects. CRL wanted to focus a lot more on product. And so we try to take in projects that end up being shifted into something that gets made in production and high quantity, and, you know, just getting a lot of projects out there.
Yeah, I would say it's maybe, I don't know the exact number. It feels like 50-50 almost, at least in my world, you know, but yeah, like Chani said, what the company started out more of an engineering services company, and we've developed product. We have a nice standard product line, what I call the standard product line, and repeat business. And then we do have strictly one-offs. And those are typically not quick. And we leverage, like I said, our experience and what we're really good at in production as much as we can. And then there's sort of a gray area in the middle sometimes where you have these engineering development type projects that will lead to product or could lead to product, or we push them to product. And that's in there too. So not quite 50-50, but it feels pretty even in terms of the day-to-day.
Great. So I've got a question here from Bob. Bob is curious if either of you have any advice for what would be the best way that you would advise someone to market themselves if they're looking to break into the robotics field and they do not have a robotics or engineering background. So they may be working in a completely different industry, but they're not they don't have the credentials of an engineer. yeah, what kind of jobs or what tips or tricks or recommendations would you make to those individuals?
I would
Yeah.
say,
Oh,
go
good.
ahead, John. Go ahead.
I think we have quite a few people actually at CRL that came from backgrounds that weren't strictly, you know, robotics or engineering. I think in particular, we've had quite a few like techs that have come from other like hardware or technical backgrounds that weren't really engineering or robotics and eventually made their way to CRL. I think we specifically have a production assembly apprentice program now. So you can kind of get into production tech work and, you know, learn about the environment during that apprentice program and eventually work up towards being a robotics tech or somehow involved in the company.
Steve, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say persistence. One, you know, a lot of the positions are technical related, but all robotics companies, every company needs buyers. They need supply chain people. They need accounting. They need non-technical things, even though it's a technical environment, and you'll learn along the way. So a lot of it, in my opinion, is you want to have a good attitude, be open to learn, be persistent, and leverage any connection you have. Don't be afraid to reach out and contact people that may work at a robotics company already, even if they're the highest level engineer. Everybody, at least at our company, and I from what I hear, you know, the robotics industry is it's rapidly growing. There's always going to need to be more hires, and everyone wants to work together. You know, everyone is very willing to bring you on, teach you what you need to teach, to learn and go from there. So I would just say persistence, leverage what you can, and don't be afraid to search, you know, things that you may not think would be realistic.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end here too, because something else I can add to everyone is, you know, if you want to stay in the know about the robotics companies that are hiring, or a robotics ecosystem that has over 100 different organizations all operating within one regional area, the Pittsburgh Robotics Network on our website, robopgh.org, has a lot of great resources for you, so you can explore those different companies, those different industry opportunities, and find a place to start. And then yeah, and to your point, just staying connected, being a part of a community. So yeah, make sure you follow us on social, sign up for our newsletters. Who knows, an opportunity for an event or a connection may come your way. So, well, with that, I want to thank you both for having this, taking the time to have this fantastic conversation. I know I've learned a lot. I hope, and I believe those who were with us here live have learned a lot. And if you're, after this event, if you're watching the recording, I think there's still a lot of great stuff to learn as well. So, so thank you again. That's great that you could join us. And thanks to Carnegie Robotics for being a great organization, doing a lot of really exciting things, innovating across so many different industries. So we're proud to have them be a part of our ecosystem.
Thanks
so with
for having
that, yeah, absolutely. So thank you to everyone. And please feel free to, like I said, follow us on social, check out our website, sign up for our newsletter. We are here to bring you into the fold, and we urge you to be a part of our community. This is a phenomenal community and ecosystem to be a part of. So yep, and it's an open and exciting place for all. So with that, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening for you, take care, wish you well, and we'll close today's event. Bye-bye all.